Porky's Corner is proud to be sponsored by Spartan Site Solutions. They are specialists in civil engineering and demolition contracts for the construction industry. Interested parties should visit their website or contact Porky's Corner for a referral at porkycorner@mail.com.
Here we are, and you can now tell me if you think that Terry were alright with this Jake Paul nonsense. So, either way, we're all going to watch it, aren't we? Hoping that Big Meech gets filled in. Pop, pop, bah!
What are you saying? You know when I've knocked you out, I'll fucking knock you out as well, dickhead. You fucking gobshite. I'll fucking batter you.
Come on then, love it.
What are you saying? What are you saying? You want to have it outside the ring?
Hope you're ready.
What?
Hope you're ready for war.
You're charged up to fuck. You are.
I don't.
And all
listen,
your little cronies will be like that. Well in cash. You said this to me. You said that. Well in, lad. Hey, look at the fucking state of them.
Me, I don't drink. I'm not charged up. I don't drink and I don't touch drugs.
You don't what?
I don't drink and I don't touch drugs.
Neither do I.
You'll see.
Okay.
You get knocked out.
Neither do I.
Okay, guys, we've got a couple of other fights to talk about as well. Cash, I will just finish on this. What happens on Saturday night? How quickly does it happen? I know what you're going to say. Tell me what plays out in the ring on Saturday night. This is a big opportunity.
You're going to get fucking battered. I'm telling you.
Look,
we could argue all day. But look, all things being equal, that may well come into it. But I'm a completely different level from Cash Ali. I'm a different, completely different breed.
Welcome back to the number one podcast in the sport, where we finally reached the inevitable conclusion of where all of this was headed. So I'm going to speak honestly and say this. I fully support Jake Paul fighting Anthony Joshua. I support the principle of Anthony Joshua and Jake Paul fighting. I support it. And there are a number of reasons why. Number one, I've always been in favor of these YouTubers taking up boxing. Like, I was early on the KSI hype train, obviously. You know, I was very early on the KSI hype train because I loved what he was trying to do. And what he was trying to do was go, I'm a young man who can do what he wants. And he showed it. You know, people say Joe Weller's got a lot to answer for. And maybe he does. But when a couple of YouTubers are sparring in the gym and then they go, well, how hard is this boxing thing? And like nearly a decade later, here we are, determined to show that it's not that hard. And it makes a mockery of all that, hey, they put their lives on the line for you. It's the hardest thing in the world. Not everyone can do this. And these YouTubers are showing that, yeah, pretty much anyone who's got time can box. And I think what that's done actually is devalued boxing. People said it will bring more eyes. And this is why guys like Eddie Hearn are stupid. They said it will bring more eyes. And I never believed that. I said, once people realize anyone can box, there is no point in watching professionals do it. And so now look, Queensbury, Gunman Fight League, all this stuff, and I'm here for it. All those trainers who are like, I'd never train influencers, I'd never train YouTubers, whoring themselves out, embarrassingly so, considering what they were saying before, embarrassing themselves. I've always been on this wave because I knew we'd end up here, because I knew that stuff boxing told the fans was all a lie. It's not the hardest thing you can do. You know the reason why people can get in the ring for 20 years and box? It's just habit. If I made you take an ice bath twice a day, every day for a year, do you think it would bother you after 3 years? It wouldn't. You just know what you were doing. And not that you'd be numb to it, but you wouldn't feel about it the same way a novice would. And it's the same with boxing. It's the same with rugby. People think rugby's a scary game. It's not a scary game. Once you know what the game is, it's fine. Because you're built for it. And what Jake Paul's showing is he's built for this combat thing. Because I don't care what anyone says. Jake Paul fighting Tyron Woodley is still a big deal. Him fighting Anderson Silva is still a big deal. These guys are lifelong trained fighters. So it's a big deal. So I'm going to give Jake Paul his flowers for having the vision and the balls to do all of this. When everyone, including me, are sat in front of microphones or keyboards pretending they have the answer, and he made it happen. So massive salute to Jake Paul. I respect the hell out of what he's doing. But now we come to the problem side of the equation. And the problem side is Anthony, Olufemi, Olaseni, Joshua. Let's park all the stuff I said in the previous 2 episodes about him. Just park that for a second. Think about Joshua's career. Joshua was this experiment. They wanted to build a boxing version of Drake. So if you know Drake, Drake is generally considered to be one of the most successful hip-hop artists of all time. But he's not loved. He's loved by people who drive Fiat 500s, and he's loved by people who drive Mazda MX-5s. They love him, right? You know, when you see grown men driving Mazda MX-5s, you're like, ooh, really? They love Drake. Guys who wear deep V-neck t-shirts love Drake. You know, the guys who are still wearing skinny jeans long after they're fashionable, they love Drake. But your scaffolders, they don't really love Drake. He's an inconvenience in a nightclub. Your builders, your electricians, even your AI engineers are not Drake fans. Yet, he's still one of the most successful artists of his generation, if not the most successful. Because they said, we're going to market him to the mainstream. We do not care about the true hardcore hip-hop fans. We're going to bypass them and go straight to the mainstream. They did exactly that with Anthony Joshua. They took Anthony Joshua and said, we're going to market him to the casuals. We're not even going to care about these hardcores, people like me and you listening. What? Why do we care about them? They're small. They're small, they're broke, they live in their mum's basements. It's probably what they were thinking. They're not the demographic that's going to get us endorsements with Rolls Royce and Bentley, which is where we're trying to get to. Okay? So all of this is happening. And they're like, we're just going to bypass these guys. You know, Hearn was probably sat there in a chunky knit cardigan, you know, wondering why he had no friends at school, the usual. You know, working out when he's going to get the next hair transplant. Disappointing that he's never got a turkey endorsement deal, right? Well, different kind of turkey. But he'll be sat there with his, you know, with his marketing people. And they're just going, right, can we just create this character that we just sold to the public? And someone probably said, and if I'd been in the room, I'd have said, but you know he's going to have to keep winning. The minute he loses, the people you bypass are going to ruin him. And June 1st, 2019, what happened? He lost, and what happened? We ruined him. And from that point on, he didn't care. Because you got to think, like, Anthony Joshua was a guy, he wanted to do 2 things. He wanted to be loved and respected by boxing people, but he also wanted to be loved and respected by his community. Yeah, he wanted black people to look at him as some kind of revolutionary figure. He wanted all of this stuff. Once Ruiz beat him, that was all out the window. And if you look at his career since, it was never about being the best of his generation. It was never about being number one. It was at that point, put simply, at that point, it was about him taking as much money out of you, because he didn't take a penny out of me, to feather his own nest. And that was the biggest middle finger he could give to not only boxing fans, but British society. You bastards made me rich. That's essentially the Joshua Project. Is Hearn and Joshua middle fingering everybody, particularly working class people, and saying, you're too stupid to see what we're doing to you. And you know what? When I'm done with him, I'm going to do it to you again. And he's just sat there in his chunky knit cardigan, probably some shade of ecru or salmon. And he's sat there, swiping right on everything on Bumble because he needs to. Money only gets you so far, my friend. So that's essentially what you have here. You have Jake Paul, and for all of Jake Paul's sins, here's a kid who grafted his way up the mountain. By some quirk of nature, he figured out this YouTube thing before anybody else. And it made him a lot of money. And it made him famous. And he's leveraged that into something he's clearly passionate about. You're not getting punched in the face just for banter, I promise you. That's Jake Paul. On the other side, you have Anthony Joshua, another self-made man, to an extent, who then needed to be pimped by a man that wears chunky knit cardigans, quarter-zip tops, and dresses sometimes like a 15-year-old boy. Not sure who he's trying to attract, not sure what fetish he's appealing to. Gonna let him do what he does. The same man who refuses to be photographed or filmed from up top, and we know why. Because it's a bit like Antarctica, isn't it? You know where they say there's like a big hole that the alien ships come in and out of? That's that big circle around his head where there used to be hair. But the point is, let me come back to this. We've reached the point in 2025 where the Jake Paul side of the debate has shown that the Anthony Joshua side of the debate are full of it. Boxing is not hard. It is not the hardest thing you're ever going to do. In fact, if you've got time, it's quite easy. Especially if you've got a bit of money behind you. So December 19th, 20th, I can't remember when it is, these two will supposedly fight in one of the biggest events in the world. Now, notorious boxing horse Steve Bunce, and he is, like, he claims to be principled until someone sends him tickets to Miami, then he just gets the knee pads on. And that's a real shame because, like, there was a time when Steve Bunce was a journalist of integrity. Now he'll just say what he's told to say. Yeah, because he's on the outside looking in. It's cringeworthy, but it is what it is. He's talking about this was an offer that was life-changing. And I'm like, I'm not sure. Netflix is a lot of things, but it's not stupid. Okay? Let's be clear about this. Netflix is not stupid. They would not be paying £100 million to a heavyweight who's seen better days and a YouTuber who's probably got his best days to come. They wouldn't be paying for that because they don't need to. It's not going to get the uplift. We talked about this with the Mike Tyson thing. There's only so much value you can put on hype, vibes, and marketing. You've got to be able to turn these things into subscriber events or run it as a pay-per-view solution, right? So the guys in Netflix are probably like, what's going on here? If you're a Netflix shareholder, you'll be like, what the hell's going on here? No. Give me a dividend. Give me the share buyback if you got that much money to dick around on Jake Paul and Femi Montana. But here's the reality of all of this. Let me just talk practically. It's 80% likely that this is not a scam, but it's a hustle. And I'll explain why. Jake Paul can't possibly have had the kind of sparring he would need to be psychologically ready for Anthony Joshua, which would then indicate that he's probably ready to get knocked out. Kind of like, who are those guys from MTV? Jackass, whatever they call them. Like, is it Steve-O? Those guys there, right? You know where they just get knocked out for the bants of it. He might go for that angle. But it's dangerous because the rules are 8 rounds, 3 minutes each, 10-ounce gloves. If you saw what Joshua did to Ngannou, and Ngannou's a guy who's been hit before, you have to worry that if Joshua did take it seriously, if Joshua went rogue and said, I'm destroying this guy, it doesn't end well. Right? It doesn't end well. It ends in scandal. It absolutely does end in scandal. So it leads me to feel that this might just be a game. And I'll give you some context just based on bits that I know that, I'm just going to try and knit together here. The plan for Joshua was to get on one of these turkey cards. And they were going to pay Joshua a healthy sum to fight a nobody, right? Cassius Chaney or whoever, just a nobody. And it was just an easy bit of money before they do whatever they do in 2026. Turkey's just like, I'm not stupid, mate. And so they were willing to not fight because no one else was ponying up the money they were asking for in 2025. And then once Tank pulled out, it wasn't even about, we're going to fight Jake Paul. It was, how do we keep Joshua's name relevant? How do we show Joshua is the guy? How do we get him being talked about again ahead of making more money off him? We'll link him to Jake Paul. Right? And so they've done that. Look at what's happened. We're all here like creating content off this, grifting off of it. When the inevitable happens and Jake Paul sustains an injury in camp, and so the fight is off, everyone's just going to be like, ugh. Meanwhile, Netflix wins, because now we're looking at Netflix. Jake Paul wins because it's like, oh my God, this guy was actually going to fight Joshua. Crazy. Yeah, it legitimizes him in boxing. Makes him more attractive as a fighter. Maybe pushes him closer to a fight with someone like Badou Jack. And then for Joshua, it brings his name back into the public consciousness at a time where he was becoming irrelevant. And so that helps Turkey when Turkey comes to plan his fights for next year. Because remember, he might not fight Fury. And so that's what I see the game being. And if that's not the game, then it can move to plan B. And plan B is this. Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua sit down and go, how do we do this? And Joshua goes, I can stop you with a body shot. And Jake goes, yeah, it's okay, I'll take that. You know what I mean? Don't even tell me when it's coming, just let it go. And I can see that happening too. The reason I'm suspicious of this is I've heard the MVP guys at Nikisa. I've heard him talk about this fight, and like the minute you start talking to me about how Jake's a live dog in this fight, I know that there's something funny going on because nobody believes that. Joshua could have had 0 bouts. You would still back him to beat Jake Paul right now. So I looked at all of that and I went, nah, it's all happened too quick. It's all too convenient. And this isn't how boxing normally works because you need time to get prepared for someone, especially if they punch violently. And I don't think that time's been invested. So now I'm looking at this going, so what's the play here? And I think the play is end of year, Netflix are like, how can we boost our share price? Yeah. Jake Paul's like, how can I boost my rating amongst boxing fans? And Anthony Joshua's like, how can I boost my name again? So everyone wins except the fans who once again get walked down the garden path. You're not going to see a serious fight between Anthony Joshua and Jake Paul. You're just not. Sad but true. I want to repeat this. At no point am I mad at Jake Paul. This is what I expect Jake to do. This is his domain. Activity for likes, views, and clout is his thing, man. Our thing is boxing. You jump in the ring, you get punched, you get paid. We're simple creatures. But the fact that we're having this discussion, the fact that this is even important to anyone tells you how low boxing has sunk. And I put this down to the fans because the fans have accepted every downgrade. When the cards got worse, fans swallowed it. And if you complained, they're like, it's better than nothing. Any boxing fan that talks about something being better than nothing is part of the problem. That's the real problem. When we don't have standards, this happens. We bent over backwards when Mayweather fought McGregor. We said, oh, yeah, I know. People hated it in the beginning. Then they're like, yeah, I want tickets. I want to see it. Embarrass themselves. And so we've seen this. Like we see guys like Carl Froch, begging for fights with Darren Till and trying to get involved in all of that. Boxing was at its best when it just let everyone do what they do and we did what we did. And if you thought you were good, you got knocked out. Now you're going in there and kind of doing as you're told, allegedly. So, I don't know. I genuinely don't know. But I can't fault Jake Paul because he puts the work in. Look at his brother in the WWE. These kids put the work in. But as I keep saying, when you've got time and money, anything is possible. Do you know what I mean? Give me that time and money, I'd be good at something. But they've been able to erode boxing. You're never going to create a boxing superstar again because in your head you're going to be like, are they really that good? If a blonde bearded kid from Ohio can do it, how good are these guys really? And into that walks Anthony Joshua, the guy that we believe has still got it. If it goes off as planned, then it's a bad look for boxing, but it's a great look for Jake Paul and his side of the world, and I respect that. If it doesn't happen, then when a boxing fan is going to tell us they're tired of having their collar felt, having their fucking, their balls tickled and all that sort of stuff, when? Because this will be the perfect extension of this Joshua project, where you're like, right, we're just maximizing revenue generation. As much money as we can get this year is what we need. And then whatever Turkey's got planned for him, he's got planned for him. But it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy that boxing fans are up in arms about this. Like, where did they think boxing was headed? They didn't think these two worlds would collide at the top like this? They didn't think that was possible? We've been telling you. So at some point, as a boxing fan, you've got to ask yourself, to what extent am I part of the problem? For a lot of people, the answer is, probably you are the problem. You are the issue. And you've allowed yourself to get played too many times to now voice concern. You've got 6'6", 250-pound Anthony Joshua against whatever Jake Paul is, and he's a small guy compared to Joshua. And this is what we're getting. No, I don't know what's the undercard. I don't know anything about anything. I know it's in Miami. There's a press conference on the 21st. And I fully expect Joshua to try and justify this in terms of it's an opportunity you couldn't turn down. Nothing was being offered. Well, fight Deontay Wilder. There you go, mate. Fight Deontay Wilder. You could have fought Luis Ortiz, but you just don't want to get your chin broken. And so here we are, right? All this time later. Anthony Joshua is going to fight Jake Paul, allegedly, on Netflix. I don't know if it's pay-per-view. If they want to make their money back, it will be. Let's not be mad as boxing fans. Let's just accept we created this world. Now we've got to live in it. You're not getting these guys out of boxing. They don't need to be out of boxing because their fan base isn't our fan base. Their fan base is their fan base, and they'll follow them wherever they go. But this is going to be the real test of who's seriously against this. Let's see how many people don't watch it versus how many people do. Most people will tell you they hate the fight, but they'll watch it. The spineless behavior that defines boxing fans. But to summarize it, I'm happy that this is happening because, like I said right at the beginning, this is where it was always meant to go. So at what point are we prepared to say enough is enough? I don't even think it'll be now. So on that note, I'll say take care, guys, and I'll speak to you soon.